So just a little bit of background for those of you that I've not met before. So my consulting business is called Banda Marketing, and I've had that consulting practice for about 22 years. I was a protege in the Rashmanic program for 9 years and have got a lot out of the program, and happy to give a little bit of time back to say thank you. Wonderful program, and thank you, Kanchan, for what it's done for me. The marketing consulting practice that I run, I have one employee, Ruba Kakish, and she and I both have a background that relates to, I suppose you'd say, generating business for companies. My background is specifically in strategic marketing and sales management, and that's the area that I consult with companies in, help them launch products and decide how to get into new markets. And Ruba has a proposal management consulting background. So today, marketing in a COVID-19 economy, I've prepared a few thoughts that are going to connect at the strategic level and also at the very practical initiative level.
Hello, this is Sharon.
Hi, this is Brent Banda. So we're just getting started. So for those of you that have just logged in the last minute, I do have a slide deck up. Hopefully you can see that in front of you. So a few housekeeping items. What we'd like to ask is if everybody can please make sure your microphone is muted, and that way we don't have background noise from people.
I think it was received. I don't know that it's been processed yet.
Okay, so we've got just one person there that we can hear you speaking, I think, on a phone. So just for these reasons, if you can mute your microphone, and if you can go to speaker view, that's the view that would allow you to see the PowerPoint presentation and myself. And we're going to try this. I think it should work just fine because people are likely not to talk over top of each other, but just like a conference call, if you can unmute yourself, if you have questions at any time, just feel free to unmute and go ahead and ask. I have some time for questions at the end, but would be quite happy to for you to jump in at any time. Kanchan, there's a note here from Michael that says the host should be able to mute everyone.
Oh, okay.
So if you're able to do that, go right ahead.
Sure.
And one technical question here. There's a note from Elizabeth saying that she's not able to hear anything, although audio is turned on. Sorry, Elizabeth, I'm not too sure what to suggest for your settings. The only thing I can think of would be what you just mentioned, which is the speakers. Hopefully the speaker setting is not muted. Okay, so we're going to jump in the information, but please, if anyone would like to jump in with a question, just feel free. So this is what we're going to go through today. Here's our agenda. We're going to talk a bit about what the COVID-19 economy is, and what is different and what is the same in the operating environment. Talk about redefining what you want to accomplish, embracing creativity, and that's an important one in this context that we're working with, and adjust how you connect online and also offline, and if there's any questions, we can also address them at the end. Okay, Kanchan had sent this out to her distribution list, as prep for this workshop. So we're not going to dig deep into this white paper, but this is a document that that our firm produced just a couple days ago on March 23rd. And when a company makes strategic decisions, it's important that they have current information on the industry and the company. And the industry typically gives information, that type of analysis, into trends and the customer group, that market, and also on the competitive landscape. And just obviously this current situation with COVID-19, the information that everybody's making decisions on in their business has radically changed since March 11th. And what we wanted to do with this white paper was give a summary of a few core questions that people have, including when is this going to end? And so we're not going to go through this document in detail. Everybody should have received it. If not, you can get it from our website, bandagroup.com, bandagroup.com. You can go in the articles page and you can download it from there. It's a free white paper that gives a little background. But what we will do is just a quick summary of these 2 points. So, what is the COVID-19 economy? Well, essentially, we're still trying to understand what it really is. But there's 2 things: how long will it last, and what will unfold? And it's an awkward situation because it's not a happy scenario in any way. It won't be a short-term situation. Hopefully, some of the measures that we're experiencing right now, where we're isolated at home, and there's self-isolation for people coming back from out of country, hopefully those won't last too long. But I mean, to be very direct, if you look at the reports that governments are basing their decisions on, which are largely academic reports by researchers in the area of public health, but also economists, what you're going to find is people are saying that the current situation is going to last anywhere from a few months to 6 months, and it's going to take a year to a year and a half before really COVID-19 is resolved on a global basis, because that's how long it's going to take for a vaccine to be developed. And here in Saskatoon, just so happens we have one of the leading research organizations, VITO, on campus that does this type of work, especially for coronavirus. So it might actually be developed here or in collaboration here, but when a vaccine is developed, then that's the end of what we're experiencing, this COVID-19 problem. So how long will it last? I think the most important thing for our discussion today is that it's uncertain, but we have to look at this as being more than just a few weeks. We need to wrap our heads around the fact that we're going to have to step out of crisis mode and begin planning in our business reasonably soon. So what will unfold? Well, there's the health crisis and the economic crisis. And the health crisis, countries, most of them have been responsible and basically shut interaction between people in society down. And it's exactly what needs to happen to suppress the speed and the extent to which people will be infected. But the projections are anywhere from 30 to 70% of the population is going to end up getting COVID-19 on a global basis. And if it all happens at one time, then the healthcare system just can't handle that. And that has an impact on the economy. So right now, the economic problems that we're seeing are the preventative measures, where businesses are not allowed to operate and people are meant to self-isolate, which means that the employees can't go to work. And we're going to see very soon situations like Italy, where countries are, their workers are unable to go because they're sick. and it compiles on the social distancing and self-isolation measures that are necessary. And the economy basically just shuts off for a period of time. So, you know, to be very direct about it, the economy will not be recovering in a strong way immediately. It's definitely going to be hampered for a period of time. And for our purpose today, we don't need to start to get into the scenarios, but people are going to have to learn to work the way they're working right now, and then they will have some version of it as society slowly ramps itself back up to some state of normal, until we get to the point where COVID-19 is not a problem anymore, which is likely the 12 to 18 month period away. So that's some background. If anyone has anything else, I mean, there's a lot of information that people would have on from both facts and opinions. And if anyone wants to weigh in now, feel free to turn your microphone back on, and we can get those comments. And if not, we're going to move on to what we're here for today, which is to discuss what to do about your business. Okay, I'm going to keep moving then. So what is different and what is the same? So I've got a few slides on this. The first one, what is really different? Your customer's reality is, I mean, no one would have predicted that life would be like it is right now a month ago, even if we saw what was going on in China and even in Italy. And the issue here is that reality is very different than it was before. There's uncertainty in demand and the ability for companies to produce product. There's extreme uncertainty in the health of the financial situation for a business. Its cash flows is hindered. And almost all businesses are in that situation. Some are only mildly affected by COVID because their demand is still the same or even stronger because of the way that society's reorganized itself. And like if you sell healthcare products to hospitals, I think that it's fair to assume that you'd have pretty strong business right now. But for many businesses, the demand has dropped, and the ability to produce their product with the bottleneck of workers having to work from home whenever possible, and some being sick, it's a real hindrance. Now, beyond the fact that it's difficult to work with, uncertainty is often more of an extreme problem than the facts of the situation themselves, because when people can't tell what's coming in the future, they freeze and they don't make decisions, and they're unable to make smart decisions. They're guessing even if they do, and it's a very awkward scenario, and that's definitely what we have in the operating environment right now. And we're going to get to this later, but your customers right now are facing a lot of uncertainty, and that's relevant to the decisions that you're going to make as a business. The other part of what the customer's reality is, bottom line, is there's different needs. Services are based on daily routine. If you're business to business, the services that the company was buying, everything from, I don't know, accounting services to the products and services that they would need just to run their daily operations, they've ground to a halt. And I mean, even the way that the routine works, I was talking to one industrial fabrication company, and they've set up a new policy where deliveries are, the people don't come in the building. So the front doors are locked, and the courier or whoever's dropping something off, there'll be a sign that says, call this number. Someone from inside comes and opens the door and takes the package, and they keep their 2-meter distance. Like it is just a different way that people are interacting and doing business right now. So the reality of the situation for your customers has changed. What is the same? Strategy always has and always will start with the customer. So you have some business decisions to make about internal operations, but the general strategic decisions in your business need to address what customers want and need from you. And so the process of crafting strategy, it's the same. That hasn't changed. Okay, what does this really mean? All right, so customers' realities changed. We have to make decisions based on the customer. what it really means is that you should be addressing the uncertainty and you should be addressing the daily needs of the customer. And this is not necessarily easy because it's been 16 days since the first step in this process on about March 11th started unfolding. And it's not a lot of time for us to adapt our own ways of doing things, let alone understand what customers are really going to need and what they're going through. But what I'd encourage you is to just put yourself in the customer's shoes and think, what do these people need from me right now? And what are they facing? What's their emotional state? What are they feeling about business and about life? And this could be business to consumer or business to business, it doesn't matter. And think, what's their routine? What's changed? And how can you plug into that? And it might be that you offer, we'll get to this, something completely different, or you just adjust what you're doing. But all these decisions need to come back from that point of view. And I don't know if you remember this company in Saskatoon, Pick and Dell. So I had this on file from a presentation I gave like 10 years ago, and I thought I'd pull it out for this. Pick and Dell was they were ahead of their time. They were a grocery delivery business in Saskatoon, and I think they were in Regina. And what they do is they take the order and they go to a grocery store, and they would pull the products from the shelves and they would deliver them to the customer and charge a fee. And they did well in their business, but it did not take off. It wasn't going to be mainstream. People were not ready for it. And I think the most important thing here is you can have a great idea, but it has to make sense from the customer's point of view. And at that point in time, people were not ready for this grocery home delivery service. There were some people probably that embraced it and loved it, but as far as I know, the business did not last. I haven't heard from them in many years. And I definitely have respect for someone that can see in the future and craft the business, but it needs to be around the realities of the situation of the day and what people are going to want to buy and use. And so now, as we look at the situation, all the grocery stores have started to offer home delivery. And of course, those services are just completely maxed at this time as people are self-isolating. So I give this as an example where you really have to think about what people want from you and what they want right now. Be ahead of the curve, but if you really want sustainable revenue, it has to plug in directly to what people are wanting from their day-to-day. Here's another slide around what's the different and what's the same. One just radical change in human interaction here is how we are to avoid personal contact. So we need to think about this in a time frame. It would be nice if we were self-isolating for another 10 days and then it would be done. And everything would go directly back to the way it was. But there's two things. One is that the time frame for this is well, it's not known, but everyone that is informed on how to control a pandemic talks about months rather than talking about weeks. And I don't know what version of what we're going through right now will exist a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a month from now, 3 months from now. But there will be measures, in these extreme measures of social distancing and self-isolation meant to suppress the virus's spread that will be in place for some time. And the second important point is that there'll be some after effects of this. I mean, people are starting to realize that these measures aren't just suppressing COVID-19. They suppress the transmission of flu and cold and other diseases, virus or not. And it's going to be in people's habits to not quite get as close and not quite direct as before and how to interact. Yes, of course, we're going to move back to in-person meetings. But my point is that the way people interact with each other and with their environment is changing based on their experience that they're going through right now. So social distancing is likely to have some aspect of presence when we're finished. We might not stand quite so close to people, and we might position ourselves differently so our breath isn't quite mixing in the midst of the interaction between us. I don't know how this is going to unfold and what's going to be normal when all of this begins to pass. You know, touch screens, I think we have to realize that society has moved, with our phone culture, moved towards a tactile experience, very much interactive. We need to interact with our environment in a physical and tactile way, and I don't know what is going to happen when this is finished. We'll all still have our phones, but we'll jump into this in an example in a minute. Now, meetings and social gatherings, I just, I mean, wow! We had an event that was planned for 2 days from now, and there would be a couple hundred people that were going to be there, and we had to cancel it. And when we canceled it, it was, I don't know, I don't remember the date, March 12th or 13th or something, or might have even been, yeah, the 11th or 12th, and we canceled it, and it was a risk because we didn't know if this was going to last that long, and whether people were going to be getting together, and maybe we should just have a smaller group of like 75 people, and so, I mean, the terms of engagement of how people interact with each other has changed. Meetings will still happen physically, social gatherings will still happen. It might be a while before what we would consider normal to return, and when it returns again, I just really don't know how these larger events or sizable events are going to transpire. And if we've got a group meeting of 4 or 8 people, you know, are people going to want to get together just for the sake of getting together? Maybe they'll see the way that they interact has been effective in this online world, which we'll get to in just a minute here. So what is the same? Well, people buy from people, and business is about people, and it's about social connection with people. So yes, you buy from a company, but you have social interaction almost all the time with businesses, and in whenever possible, people buy from other individuals, and they think about the individuals that are associated with a business, and that hasn't changed. That won't change. So what this means is you need to engage properly with the customers that you have and other people as well. So systems and processes that you have in place for how you interact with your customers as well, and reach out to others. Now, this whole webinar culture, like, it is interesting. I've had a couple of video chats before, but nothing like what's going on in the last week. You know, I was on video, and you know, one of them that just we got together because I'm certain it was because we knew of each other, but we just felt more comfortable connecting and ended up in a video meeting because both of us, they're in Phoenix and they're isolated the way we are, and they just felt more comfortable connecting through video than as if we had to go through the chore of trying to schedule a conference call. So people, they're adapting right now, and they're getting some new ways of interacting. I'm going to go through an example, and then I want to address something that came through in the chat. So this is a photo of the McDonald's screens, which I'm sure people have seen and experienced. So you walk in any McDonald's now, and you're going to get those big screens that you order yourself. Well, you know, this is the example of how the touch screen operating environment has changed. You know, when you walk in now, when this starts to pass and you walk back into a restaurant, into something like McDonald's, are you going to want to touch the screen? You know, we're hearing that the COVID-19 virus lives on plastic and stainless steel for something like 7 or 9 days. I can't remember the exact number, and I don't know, and I don't know if the time frame on glass, but you know, what is this going to mean for people that are a little bit sketchy about picking up the virus from what they touch? I mean, McDonald's, I'm certain, is going to have to change their processes, even if they have somebody wiping down the glass every 20 minutes or something like that. Okay, a couple things that came through. So I've got here a message that myself as the speaker am cutting in and out and off and on. And that if everybody, another one that says, if everyone shuts off their video, it will improve the quality of the call. So if people that are able to mute your video so we can't see you, if you can do that, and that way we have perhaps a little bit stronger of a connection. And also I've got here a message. Very great point, Brent. My husband and I own a physio clinic in Saskatoon, and we find it difficult with the change in human nature. We're a close profession. Yes. So this is something also, I mean, I don't know how this is going to unfold, but dentists or physio clinics or wherever, when you're within a couple feet of the patients, of the people, doesn't have to be healthcare, that you're delivering your service to, I don't know what is going to go on after people get back to some sort of a different norm. But business is going to change, and the way that people interact with each other is going to change. Another comment that came in, one of the outbreaks in Western Canada may have been created by the buffet serving utensils. Yeah, there's a lot of scenarios, including where we have to understand that we've been a little bit too close to other people, and also picking up germs from time to time. I think people are going to come up with a new reality on how they interact. Okay, before I move on, there was a few things I mentioned off the chat, but if anyone has a question or a comment you'd like to weigh in on right now, you can unmute your speaker and feel free. And then if not, I'll just keep going. Okay, we'll keep going, but again, for those of you that might have just joined, because a few people joined in the last few minutes, please feel free to interrupt at any time. Okay, now redefine what you want to accomplish. So the primary point here is that whether you have a formal strategic plan or marketing plan or business plan, or if it's in your head, the important thing to wrap your head around right now is that the situation's changed, and so your goals and your strategy is going to have to adapt around that. And so I break it into short-term, medium-term, and long-term. When I'm doing a strategic plan for someone, or a business plan, or a marketing plan, we have to address these three areas in different ways because they need different types of thought. So for the short term, I'd say look at this in the context of a few weeks right now, because things are changing so fast. Really, the focus is on business continuity and crisis communication. So business continuity, very few owner-managed businesses will have a business continuity plan in place, but the core principles are that if you're not able to operate the way that you normally do because of a certain crisis that may impact the context for how you deliver service, then you need to have plans for how you're going to pick up and keep running in that difficult situation. And what I've seen work very well with business continuity planning is to say, well, you know, what are the scenarios that could happen? And sometimes a pandemic is brought up. Often it's not. It's more tangible, like a core supplier just can't deliver exactly what we need, and what do we need to do with it? A bit more granular. So not very many companies have had a business continuity plan in place, but they've had to address these principles when they are forced to. So what does it mean to our workforce? You know, what are our priorities as we start to make decisions and these kind of things? And the crisis communication, there's some core principles that are pretty well known now. You know, be transparent, be open, speak or communicate more frequently than less, and be ahead of the conversation and admit when you have problems these kind of things. Well, the core that's important is that we're still in that zone right now. And is because things are changing. Like Ontario and Quebec shut down their economies for 2 weeks and 3 weeks respectively just a few days ago. I would not be surprised in any way if that happens to Saskatchewan. Mo has been relatively at or ahead of the curve on this. And, you know, if we see a spike in our cases, when we see a spike in our cases from community-based transmission, rather than people coming in from out of province, when we see a real spike, you know, he might follow suit. And we need to know what our plans are before that decision is made. And all of us, we've got ample warning. We've had Canadian provinces, the two populous provinces, have had their economies shut off, where their businesses are not allowed to open, and except for the essential services. And we might get to that point. You know, there's industries in ours that are dictated not to open, but not the whole economy. So the whole point here is that in these few weeks, we really have to be focused in and try to understand what this means and how to handle it. The medium term is really where we're starting to move into. And this is what I'd encourage people to start to wrap your head around. What is the context for my business and how my business is going to operate in the next 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, because this will be affecting us over that time frame. And no, we don't know what things are going to look like exactly 12 months from now, but they won't be what happened on, you know, last week in February or first week in March. It won't be back to normal like that for some time. So most companies are going to have to make some substantial changes to their to the functions of business, to HR, to finance, to marketing, production, IT, infrastructure. And those are going to materialize in the strategic plan and also in the business plan, and then in the functional plans like the HR strategy, the marketing strategy, or the HR plan, the marketing plan, the finance plan, these kind of things. And then there's long-term, you know, we're not at that point where you can really do some effective long-term planning. This will have implications over the long term of 5 years or so, but I think you probably at this stage, because there's so much that we just really don't know what's going to happen, it's putting us down a path, I guess is the best way to say. We don't know which way the path is pointed right now, so it's kind of hard to go all that way out and plan 5 years ahead. But I would absolutely suggest that we start our planning for the next couple of years. Okay, a couple comments have come in. I'm going to go through these here. Okay, interesting. So this quote, okay, this is perfect. So we've got an example, a quote from Sylvia, and everyone should be able to see it. I'm going to address right now, but we will jump into that example with the gym right away. And the second comment from Dirk, we're still in the first wave of this. There normally is a second wave that comes based on history. Absolutely. So the projections are that there'll be a slump in the number of cases over the summer, and part of it is natural, the way like a flu would not be as prominent. But there, until there's a vaccine, we can expect there to be another wave that emerges where there's more people that are infected, and this is a real problem because the second wave can be much higher. Okay, so let's keep moving now. In redefining what you want to accomplish, tips for short-term uncertainty. We'll do short-term and medium-term. Have clear goals that will drive strategy. So just making decisions that feel right, sometimes they can be effective, and sometimes, you know, it turns out we're pointing ourselves in the wrong direction. The first step is actually to have a clear understanding of what your objectives are, so or goals. So for example, a goal may be to preserve relationships with your core customers over the course of this crisis, and you say, no matter what, that's one of the most important things that we can have accomplished at the end of this. And so that's a goal for how you might make decisions in your business. You'll be working towards that. It's going to dictate the crisis communication plan and how it unfolds. It's also going to dictate the way you organize operations, perhaps focusing in on some of those core clients rather than trying to be absolutely perfect in the way you deliver service for all of your clients. Just as an example, be flexible. So this ties to the third bullet, principles rather than rigid strategies. So in my experience, what works very well when you don't know what's happening the next day or the next day is it makes sense to plan and to have a strategy in place, because you have to think through the situation in order to come to that conclusion. And then the strategy often can weather the storm if you have it as a short-term strategy. But a different approach, which works really well, or a complementary approach, is to define some key principles that are important to your business. So say, for example, one core principle is we need to preserve the key accounts that we have, the relationships with our key accounts. Another will be to protect the health and wellness of our core or of our employee base. Another might be to protect the financial stability of our company. And if you have these principles in place and then something changes in the operating environment, like Saskatchewan decides to shut down its economy for 2 weeks, you hopefully would have thought through that and have a strategy for how you're going to approach it. But if you have these principles in mind, you can use those as a screen to make very short-term, quick decisions that you might need to make. And that's one way to manage through the short-term situation. Also, limit yourself. Just try to do less, but do it right. And when you have more flex time in your schedule towards a midterm or a longer-term goal, often we can bite off quite a bit and find a way to get it done. But in the short term, we're trying to pay bills, and we're just trying to get through the day. Okay, tips for midterm recovery. So these are more strategic decisions now. The points I want to make are about decisions that you can make in your business. So regarding the products and services you offer, a lot of people are going to have to revisit them. And we have an example, a gym example I'm getting to around this. What people want from you is different than what they wanted from you before March 11th. So what they need from you is different. That's the point we had a few minutes ago. And your products may not be relevant to people anymore, or the services you offer, or the way you deliver them. Adjust your message, so the tone and the theme needs to be adjusted around the realities of the situation. So if you had an ad that really was quite either aggressive in its messaging to buy from us now, which at times that can be appropriate, or your ad was extremely positive and upbeat, and it had almost a celebratory feel to it. I think that you might want to pull that back and have a little bit more of a direct and almost a solemn feel to the tone of the ad, just to respect the operating context that we're in right now. And that's the tone and the theme is the platform for the way your message is being presented. And the core message itself, often what you see now is, we're here to help you. And if you're going to say that, it needs to be true. It can't just be, we're here to help you and here's what you can buy from us. There needs to be a little bit of substance to what you're offering in public or your customer base. Reinforce your brand. So this is the time to define your reputation. A brand or a reputation is formed by being very clear about what you want to be known for, telling people that this is what we are, this is what makes us special, and then actually living it. So the lived experience does more than reinforce it. It actually creates that brand, because if you claim something and you can't deliver on it, then the brand promise just falls apart. And right now, this is when things are stressful. This is when people are tested. and when brands and companies are tested. It doesn't mean you need to give everything away for free, but are you difficult to work with, or are you easy to work with? Are you there to help your employees, because there's an internal brand, your employees and your customers, or are you not? And there's some economic realities and some practical physical realities that restrict us from doing what we'd like to do. But you will be judged on your actions. So make sure that what you are doing is in context appropriate for the situation. Consider new markets. There'll be customers out there in the marketplace that are orphaned, that are not being served by the traditional suppliers. Either they went out of business, which is going to happen to some, or they just aren't able to adapt to a different way of delivering service. But there will be opportunities for new customers, and you need to keep that on your radar, because they might come to you, they might not know you exist, they might go to someone else, and there's going to have to be a proactive effort to draw those orphaned customers in. Adapt how you work with people. You know, Ruba from my office has introduced me to a service called DocuSign. I'm sure there's several out there, but it's an online contract management and signing service. You don't have to be physically in the same room to sign a contract, and it has been just remarkable. I've benefited from it. Now that's been over 2 years, and so we're well set up. There's no difference now that we're working remotely to how we handle something like a contract. But you know, if we were still signing it and faxing it back and forth, I think that we'd have a real problem adapting to this new way of working. But now is the time for you to look at how you handle your workflow, meetings, the way the work from home culture is functioning, and just try to adapt into a situation where this could be part of the new normal, because in almost all scenarios, it will be. Strengthen relationships. So support your customers and your suppliers in some of the awkward situations that they're going to be in. You know, don't be the biggest problem that they have in their day, and that's going to preserve the relationships that you have. Any questions before I move on to other content? And if anyone has a question, remember you can unmute yourself and ask, or you can type it in through the chat. Okay, we're going to keep moving here. Okay, embracing creativity. So what we just went through was a description, you know, what's changed and what's not, and then how do we actually identify how we're going to make some of these changes now. This is where the rubber hits the road. You have to get creative in the scenario where you're going to make some changes in your business. So what does the customer need right now, and how can we adjust our services? These seem like simple questions, but for you to put yourself in the customer's shoes and ask themselves, what do they really need? Okay, a slight pause. I got a question that came in. Can I repeat the name of the online contract signing company? The audio cut out. It's called DocuSign. DocuSign, D-O-C-U-S-I-G-N. And I'm sure it's one of several that are available. It just happens to be the one I've used. Okay, back to the embrace creativity. What does your customer need right now? So I would look at this question in the context of the next couple of weeks, and in the context of the next couple months, and then up to the point of about 18 months from now. And based on that, the decisions that you make today are going to allow you to be a relevant service provider. So you will be relevant to what they need in the context of the services as they try to keep their business afloat and make some decisions. How can we adjust our services? So in this in this context, we have to say, okay, now that we know what or what we think is going to be the needs of these customers, how can we make our own situation adapt around it? Now, this is a photo from inside of a business in Saskatoon, Fit. It is owned by Matt. I think I'm saying his name right, Jodine. Just a wonderful, talented individual, and he has a great experience in this gym, and he's had to close, just part of the rules that are adapting, that we have to adapt to. So the point is, what's the customer's need? So he has a membership-based process where when people come in, they work in small groups or individual with the trainer that's in the room, and everybody works with the trainer. So the people in this gym are used to working with the trainers, and they're used to getting a lot of direction on their exercise, and now they can't come in. So as an example here of what the need is, well, people still need to exercise, they still need to stay fit. In fact, if all of us are just wandering around our houses and not getting much movement every day, then we're actually seeing a lot of decline in our health. And his specific membership is going to go through a withdrawal as far as community goes, because you walk in and there's a nice tight community to connect with, and the motivation that comes with working with a trainer. So, you know, what can the gym do to adapt around this? And this was the chat comment that came in a little bit earlier, was about a gym. Well, and I haven't talked to Matt about his business, so this isn't what he's doing. This is just a few things in my mind. You know, he could send out daily workout routines to his members. He could have a variety of, like, say, 3 routines, one for a group of people that are need a little bit more of a vigorous exercise routine, the moderate, and then more of the straightforward. And he could send them out to people as appropriate, or maybe all 3, and they can pick the one they want to do. Something that could be done in the comfort of anyone's home. Equipment, and the whole point here is still supporting their health. There's also online personal coaching that you might be able to connect. I've got young kids, and I've just been impressed with how they've been able to hold their meetings on. They're doing piano lessons over Zoom, so the teacher and they are able to hear each other and interact. I would have never thought about using a music lesson, but my kid piano and violin lessons have been held over these softwares. So people are getting a little bit creative. You absolutely could do a home routine workout with a trainer, where the trainer's logged in and watches you do the routine through the video chat, just with the 2 of you. There's a comment that just came in. I worked out with Matt, and he's offering meal plans, routines, and mental health coaching. Well, there you go. That's so a little plug for him as a local business, but that's very creative, getting into some, like, the mental health coaching, getting into the point where he's saying, okay, what are people going through and how do we support that? So a much better example than the few simple ones that I had come up with for his gym. I love that. That's excellent. Okay, still haven't had any questions. I'll take a pause. Are there any?
I have a question.
Questions or comments that people want to make at this point? Yeah, go ahead, please. Okay, somebody's audio sounds like, whoever had just mentioned that they have a question.
Oh, yes, sorry, that's me. I think
If there's a technical problem here and it resolves itself.
I think it just cut out.
Yeah, so you want to have a follow-up phone call.
Okay,
It
so
adds a layer of admin to our sales. Important. Like, what if,
hey, Kanchan, are you able to mute everybody, because now there's several people with background?
or I'm just asking.
Easier to learn off of.
Yes.
Right.
Sorry.
Like, what kinds of things do you want on there? Your bikes?
Kanchan, are you able to mute everybody's microphone?
Yes. All participants to unmute themselves. Yeah.
Second. Just a second.
Okay. And
Is
there's a
everybody
message here from
unmuted?
someone that the software is trying to unmute their
Mute all.
service.
Everybody is muted. Except you, Brent.
Everyone's muted. Oh, hold on.
Yeah, everybody is muted.
Okay.
Sorry.
Kanchan, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I've got a note here that I am also muted, but Kanchan's able to hear. Good. So I've got another message.
Everybody should be able to hear you.
Okay, good. I've got several coming in that they can hear me now. So I think that if anyone's having a problem, it would not be because of my end here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I guess what we're going to do is limit ourselves, if you have questions, to the text, send it in and I'll be able to hear it, or I'll be able to read it. Okay, we're going to keep moving. Adjust how you connect. So it's important now, this is so obvious, but to shift to online communication. And I was talking to one person who said that she's an extrovert and she's having a hard time with it. I think legitimately it happens. The people that are used to connecting, people are used to connecting with others on a daily basis, and that's where they get their energy from. This environment is going to be very hard for them to experience. People need to have human connection. The way that they do it now is going to adopt around the situation. So what I wrote here was LinkedIn webinars and video meetings are the way that everybody's doing it right now. This kind of a meeting where there's all these people here, it's one way to feel a little bit more connected to the group. But in a small group, I've had a few small group discussions and they've gone well. And it really, like with 4 people, and you really walk away feeling like you had a connection to somebody, which is just excellent. Connecting offline, if it's at all possible. And I just have this, question in my mind, is mail socially acceptable right now? It's like, there's that study about how coronavirus stays on certain substances more than others. Being on paper is not one that lasts a long time, but of course it can still be. And so if you get something in the mail, some people are going to be a little bit standoffish about it. But I think that life is going to come right back, and people are going to want that tactile experience. They're going to want that physical product in their hands and really feel connected to others in the same way. So there's nothing wrong with swimming upstream and going against the current. As everything moves online, consider life and what people really get out of the experiences that they used to have. And I think that you're going to find that there'll be a little bit of a polar shift where people are going to be able to connect in different ways with different people. There's a question here, or a comment. We've done a fair bit of online training by Zoom this past year and found that people are okay for about an hour and then they start to disengage. We also started offering online courses to some organizations where they're able to work at their own pace and we're available during a bi-weekly or monthly webinars. Well, this is perfect. Like we're all learning how to use this tool. Some people have used it more than others, but we are going to have to find a way that makes sure it works. And we're getting to our hour now, so we're going to have to keep moving that way people don't get disengaged. This was something that Sona Manik had put on my radar, and I've not learned much about this yet, but it's a website called Nextdoor. And I just went on and checked it out, Sona, and I was pretty impressed with the concept of it. If I have it right, it is a way for people, they put in their postal code, and it's a way to get connected with others that are in the exact same physical community. And to be clear, I'm not familiar with this, I'm not advocating it, but I just want to say that it struck me at a time when people are feeling isolated. They are self-isolating, but at a time where they're feeling disconnected from each other, this online tool to bring people together, and it looks like encourage people to actually get together physically. And I'm guessing at that point, but when life starts to return to some form of normal, we'll have made new relationships and strengthened relationships with people online, and they are going to transfer over to the in-person scenario. So something like this is actually quite useful. Sona mentions downloads of Nextdoor has risen dramatically over the last couple of weeks. I'm not as familiar either, but this seems to be a way communities are connecting. So, you know, I even suggest that if your product or service lends itself to building a community, to go ahead and do that. One of the thoughts about the gym format that I had in my mind was, you know, I wonder if you could have an online discussion with people where, you know, a half dozen or so people that have similar level of fitness were to get together and just talk about what it's been like trying to adapt. And like his business then becomes the anchor in that community, and people feel a real sense of connection and gratitude to him to bringing those people together. And just as a thought, as an example, think of ways though that you can help your customers connect. And that's the material that we have for today. So I'll take it. Are there any questions? If there are questions, I think we're going to have to ask them over the chat, please. And I'll read them out and be able to address it.
Does anybody have any other questions? Hello?
Okay. No, I have down here, I thought it was a question coming up. There's a few copies. Okay, a few questions, Kanchan, for you. First one, can we get a copy of this webinar? I'm happy to make the slides available. Kanchan, were you planning on making a recording available to people?
It all depends on you, Brent, what you want me to do. Do you want to share it or?
Yeah, sure. I have no problem with it being available. So I guess the answer is if the recording has worked and it is high enough quality and we're able to pull it together, then Kanchan will make that available. And if not, at the very least, we'll make our slides available. And Kanchan, I think, has the name of everyone that has registered or not registered, had been logged in. So if she could either get that to you, or Kanchan, would you post it on your Rashmanic Foundation website?
You know, we will decide how, you know, what would be the easiest for everybody, and somehow everybody who has registered here will get a copy. And
yeah, okay.
I will email.
So everyone will have access to it. Okay, and then a couple questions looks like have come in. If you've had a small email group, how can you get a larger audience? Okay, so this one's interesting because email lists where people have opted in and legitimately find the content that's provided to them to be valuable, those lists are gold. Those are priceless, and they take time. You know, there's times when you craft together distribution lists, and of course it's very different now with the CASL regulations, the privacy regulations. But the bottom line is that if you've got a list, it needs to grow organically, and that means that people need to have some experience to your content and then decide to opt in. And now's a perfect time for you to be able to, for example, post some content on LinkedIn and say, this is the kind of content we distribute through our newsletter. And if you'd like to sign up, this is where you can sign up, because people are feeling abandoned and alone and isolated, and they're seeking out content. They're joining these webinars. They're reading the PDFs. They're trying to learn. They're sponges, trying to learn what they can right now. And so I just encourage people to steer people towards a subscription list if that's a tool that you have. Heather Rodriguez has a question here. Heather, you say you have a question if we could unmute. But
yeah, I
if we
can just
unmute,
unmute myself.
oh, did you? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, I use Zoom all the time for my webinars too.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, I thought I'd just ask this, and because it's kind of hard to type out, because basically I have a couple of different businesses and services. I built a hypnotherapy practice, and then I've trained over 60 and certified like hypnotherapists in Saskatchewan. And now I have like more of a, I also have like a consulting. I've been working with holistic therapists and hypnotherapists and even coaches to, you know, achieve deeper work within their sessions and build their businesses. And so I feel like I have a lot of value to offer, especially in the sense of mental and emotional resilience. And I was already planning to go fully online, but it was like a plan for the fall that happened in a day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so I am still seeing I still have local clients, but I've moved their sessions online. And some people accepted that, and some people said they'll wait until, you know, we're back in person, I think, without really realizing how long that might be. And so I have two questions. So my first question is, do you think it's helpful to just kind of reach out to those people and help them, or like kind of my current client help them understand? Like, I did send out a full detailed email about the process of Zoom and how it works and how it's easy to connect and how we can still do the sessions the same. But well, actually, I don't know if this is a question. I really
Sorry, I'm going to have to
appreciated
stop you for a minute, Heather. There's some music
feedback.
or some noise coming through the background. And if
Yes.
anyone other than Heather has their microphone on, if you can just mute, please, because there's a lot of feedback noise there. I think it might be gone now. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
please,
great.
you're talking about, is it worthwhile reaching out, I think, with some instructions on using Zoom, is that right?
Oh no, I did that already.
Okay.
And I guess like my main question, really, I'll just keep it focused. My main question is really that, like, I have been moving into this more coaching model, but I still have like my hypnosis and my hypnotherapy students that were registered for Saskatoon for April. And so I am looking at bringing this hypnotherapy training online. And but at the same time, they registered for an in-person training. So I was wondering in what you think about, you know, because some people do want to kind of push these things off or like wait until we're back in person. And I was just wondering if you think it's really valuable to let them know like more about how long that might be, and, you know, how much more value it could be actually doing it online, because then they have option to the recordings and they have options to,
Yeah,
you
sure.
know.
I'm happy to give you some feedback on that, Heather. So the core point that strikes me is that it's probably going to be a while before you'd be able to deliver it in person. And a while, it's tough to pick a date, but to be very direct about it, it looks like these types of restrictions are going to be in place in some form until at least September. And so what we might find is in early summer, there's an easing of them, and the infection rate will start to go down. And then there could be the bounce back in fall, and the restrictions come on again in, say, August, September. There's so much I don't know, but no scenario that I've heard of expects that are people that are informed on how pandemics unfold. No scenario predicts that these restrictions are going to be finished in 3 weeks and everybody's going to go back to normal. There's going to be restrictions on group meetings. There's going to be social distancing, and there's going to be the people's own hindrance to jump back into a scenario when the virus is still in the community where they might get it. And so I think even if people like the face-to-face, it does not strike me as an option to put it off unless you can say 6 months or more is something that would be acceptable to wait. So I would approach them with some, and that white paper that was distributed by Kanchan, and that you can get on our website, bandagroup.com, and it's a download. It's a free thing that you can get on the articles page about COVID-19. It has a reference to a lot of the data that I'm talking about, so you'd be able to get the sources directly. And so I like the idea of telling them it's going to be too long. We can't wait because we won't be able to hold this online for at least 6 months. And then the second part is the evidence that you have that having something online is just as effective or more effective. What I've found is, well, I'll state, it is obvious. When people experience something, then they get it, then they understand. And all of us knew that video chat worked. Like, we've got FaceTime and other equivalent technologies on the phones, but they've been used for novelties usually. The only time I've used it is when I'm out of town and I want to connect with my kids when I'm gone for 4 nights, and we do that FaceTime chat, and then it lets you feel a little bit more connected to them. And yet we've had the ability to have these video meetings for years, and we just haven't done it. Well, now people are experiencing it in the last few weeks and in the next few months, and you can bet that it's going to be more mainstream in the way that people interact. And it's because there's genuinely a value to it. It's not a novelty. There's some legitimate human connection that comes through. And so I think if you were to explain to people those two dimensions, that physically it's not going to be possible, and even if it is possible, you'll get as much or more out of it through the online session, I think that you'll get some good buy-in.
I like that you mentioned, like, you can actually experience emotion through it, because I found, even just, I've been doing some live hypno sessions just off of my page to help people at this time, and like the amount of likewise energy that we're all feeling during the session is amazing. Yeah.
Well, this is good. I encourage you to promote it, and people will come either kicking and screaming, or they're gonna get a little nudge and they'll connect, and then you'll find that I think the community will rally around it pretty quick. Are there any other questions before we wrap up? If I've missed a question, I apologize. There's a lot of comments here, and thank you for some of the compliments that came through from various people. I appreciate that. And I don't think, I have one question here that I see, but I might need a clarification. It says, from Kirk, can you speak to how important it is to have a routine? I'm assuming that means a routine in your day when we're working remotely like this, but Kirk, if you can send clarification on that. Yeah. So it says, yes, a daily routine as it has changed. Okay. So, because it's easy to get out of a routine. Okay, so I'm going to speak to this just from my own experience. I mean, my background is in strategic marketing and sales management, so that's my core area of expertise, not in productivity or even in ergonomic issues around how you're at your desk. But what I found is that I had a really hard time when I first started working from home here, because the routine, this is a great question, because the routine was off. I did not have the time before I went in the office that I normally did. I did not have the environment around me that I was used to. I definitely didn't have the same social connection to be able to draw out some of the best work that I can do and use people as a soundboard. that and then there's the scheduled parts of throughout the day that just kind of give you the flags in the distance that you're working towards. So all I can say is what's worked for me in the last few days is to try to get back to a sense of normalcy by building in some of the things that I miss. Like the very first thing that I do when I walk in the day is the same thing that I did when I was working in my office. And that sort of is enough stability that it allows me to simulate my day. I'm still not as productive as when I'm in my office, but yesterday I did have a very good day, and so far today as well. So that's what I can address on that. Okay, and then another question now about an expanded to marketing, the same principle around a routine expanded to marketing. Well, this is a difficult situation because we have to change the way that we market to people. We have to change how we connect with people and what we're saying and the tone that we're saying it and the way that we're reaching out. So I would say it's less important to have the routine of how you, for example, maybe you send out content on social media once a week at a certain time and you know that you're going to be doing it. Well, sure, it's not a bad thing to keep that up, but what's more important is to say, is the material still relevant that we would be normally sending out? And is it timely if we were to wait until our next posting, which is a week from now? So I think that everything's on the table, and the first priority for me wouldn't be a routine in that type of a context. It would be to say, what can we possibly do to be most effective and build your very short-term plan around that. And then, yeah, sure, start to build in some of the natural routine that gives you some stability and familiarity and helps you be productive. Okay, so we are past an hour and 15 minutes now. So that was a good period of time, a good session. Thank you to everyone who has joined in, and absolutely, I've enjoyed presenting some of this information and the questions beforehand that I got, knowing that I was going to give this, and also during today. So thank you for that. Kanchan, is there anything that you want to do to wrap here?
No, this is just Sona here. I don't know if you can hear me.
Hi, Sona. Yes.
Hey. Just wanted to thank you, Brent. You know what, you've been a huge supporter of the program and all of our participants. So thank you for jumping in and sharing all your expertise and your time and information with us. We very much appreciate that. So a very special thank you to you. Also for our other participants currently on the line, just so you know, we have our next seminar coming on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time again. The topic will be government programs available in the COVID pandemic. So thank you, Dirk, for the breaking news. Prime Minister Trudeau has made an announcement about further aid available to small businesses. We're going to be discussing that and more on Tuesday, so please feel free to join us on Tuesday and share the details with anyone else who might appreciate participating in that seminar. But again, thank you very much, Brent, for all your time and expertise, and as always, being such a great supporter of our program participants and the program itself.
Oh, you're welcome, Sona.
Thank you, Brent.
You bet. Thanks, Kanchan. Okay, bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.